There is a strange illusion that most human beings carry throughout their lives. We believe that our actions disappear. A harsh word spoken in anger, a kindness offered to a stranger, a silent intention hidden deep in the mind. We assume that once the moment passes, the event is over. But the universe does not work that way. Nothing truly disappears. Every action leaves a signature in reality. Imagine standing beside a perfectly still lake. You pick up a small stone and throw it into the water. The stone sinks, and for a brief moment ripples appear on the surface. After a few seconds, the lake becomes calm again. Most people believe the disturbance is gone. But physics tells a different story. Energy cannot vanish. It only changes form. The ripples spread outward across the lake. They collide with other waves, reflect from the boundaries, and slowly merge into the vast movement of the water. The lake remembers the stone, not as an object but as a pattern of energy. Your life works in exactly the same way. Every thought you generate, every word you speak, every action you perform, creates a ripple inside the invisible ocean of reality. Ancient civilizations gave this process a name. They called it karma. For centuries, karma was explained as a spiritual law, a cosmic justice system that rewards good deeds and punishes harmful ones. But modern science offers a fascinating way to look at the same principle, not as a religious rule, but as a natural law of energy and consequence. To understand this, we must begin with one of the most famous statements ever written in physics, a sentence created by Sir Isaac Newton. Newton's third law of motion says, "For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you push a wall, the wall pushes you back. If you jump off a boat, the boat moves in the opposite direction. Every force creates a counterforce. Every action produces a response." This law governs the movement of planets, the motion of rockets, and the simple act of walking across a room. But here is a question that Newton never answered. What happens when the action is not physical? What happens when the force is emotional, psychological, or intentional? Because human beings are not only bodies, we are also fields of thought, emotion, and intention. Neuroscience now shows that thoughts are not abstract illusions. They are measurable electrical patterns in the brain. Every time you think, billions of neurons fire together, producing electrical impulses. These impulses generate electromagnetic fields. In other words, thought is energy, emotion is energy, intention is energy. And if Newton's law applies to energy, then every intention we release into the world must eventually produce a reaction. Perhaps not immediately, perhaps not in the same form, but somewhere, somehow, the universe must respond. Karma may simply be the long-term echo of human energy, an echo that travels through time until it finds its way back to the source. Part 2. The Network of Connections. There is something fascinating about the way the universe connects events. Sometimes two moments that appear completely unrelated are secretly part of the same chain. A meeting that changes your life, a small decision that redirects your future, a random conversation that opens a door you never expected. When we look at these moments, we often call them coincidence. But physics is slowly revealing something unusual. The universe may be far more interconnected than we once believed. One of the most mysterious discoveries in modern science is something called quantum entanglement. When two particles interact under certain conditions, they become linked in a strange and powerful way. Even if they travel millions of kilometers apart, they remain connected. If the state of one particle changes, the other responds instantly. Not after a second, not after a minute, instantly, as if distance no longer exists between them. Even Albert Einstein found this phenomenon difficult to accept. He famously called it spooky action at a distance. Yet experiment after experiment confirmed the same result. Reality is not made of isolated objects. It is made of relationships. Everything is part of a network. Now imagine what this means for human life. Every action you perform becomes part of the universal network of cause and effect. Every decision connects you to future outcomes you cannot yet see. Think about the people who influenced your life. A teacher who encouraged you when you were young, a stranger who helped you at the right moment, a mistake that forced you to learn something valuable. None of these moments existed in isolation. They were part of a long chain of interactions stretching through time. Ancient philosophers believed karma works in a similar way, not as a punishment system, but as a network of energetic connections. Every action you take creates a thread. Some threads are light and harmonious, others are heavy and chaotic, but all of them continue moving forward through time until they complete their loop. Modern science offers another idea that makes this concept even clearer. It is called the butterfly effect. The term comes from chaos theory. It suggests that a tiny event in one place can eventually produce massive consequences somewhere else. The famous example says that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil could eventually contribute to the formation of a tornado in Texas. At first this sounds exaggerated, but the mathematics behind chaotic systems shows that complex environments are extremely sensitive to small changes. Weather systems behave this way, economies behave this way, and human societies behave this way as well. A small decision can slowly transform an entire life. A careless word spoken in anger may damage a relationship for years. A simple act of kindness may inspire someone who later changes the world. Most of the time we cannot see these long-term consequences. We only notice the immediate result, but the ripple continues traveling long after the original action has ended. Imagine a long corridor filled with mirrors. When you shine a beam of light inside, the reflection bounces endlessly from one mirror to another. Your original action becomes an echo repeating itself across the corridor. Life behaves in a similar way. Every choice you make enters the corridor of time. It reflects through people, situations, and events. Sometimes the reflection returns quickly. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it returns in a completely unexpected form, but the echo is always traveling. And this is where karma becomes deeply personal, because the universe does not respond only to our physical actions. It also responds to our intentions. Two people can perform the same action with completely different motives. One may help someone out of genuine compassion. Another may help only to gain recognition. Externally, the actions appear identical, but internally the energy is different. The intention becomes part of the ripple. Psychology has discovered something similar. Our beliefs and expectations strongly influence our behavior, and our behavior shapes how others respond to us. If someone constantly expects hostility from the world, their body language becomes defensive. Their tone becomes sharp. Their actions become guarded. As a result, people around them react with the same tension. Eventually, the person concludes that the world really is hostile, but the reality they experience is partially created by their own emotional frequency. Karma works through these subtle feedback loops. The world reflects what we continuously project. This does not mean life is perfectly fair. Sometimes good people suffer. Sometimes harmful individuals appear to succeed. But if we observe carefully over long periods of time, patterns begin to appear. Arrogance tends to isolate people. Dishonesty tends to destroy trust. Compassion tends to build strong relationships. Patience tends to create stability. These patterns are not mystical punishments. They are natural consequences of human interaction. The universe behaves like a mirror, and mirrors do not judge. They simply reflect. There is another reason karma often feels mysterious. The timeline of consequences is rarely immediate. If every action produced an instant reaction, the system would be obvious. But life does not operate like a simple machine. Some ripples take years to return. Some take decades, and some may travel through generations. Consider the decisions made by people centuries ago. The inventions they created, the conflicts they started, the knowledge they discovered, all of it continues shaping the world today. We are living inside the echoes of countless actions performed long before we were born. In the same way, our choices today will influence people who do not yet exist. Karma is not just personal, it is collective. Humanity itself creates waves that move across history. When societies choose cooperation, progress accelerates. When societies choose violence, suffering spreads. Civilizations rise and fall depending on the patterns they generate. This realization can feel overwhelming. If every action produces a ripple, then the responsibility of living becomes enormous. But there is also something empowering hidden in this idea, because it means that even the smallest positive action matters. A moment of patience, a word of encouragement, a decision to act with integrity when dishonesty would be easier. These small choices quietly reshape the future. You may never see the full extent of their influence, but the ripple continues traveling. The universe is not a place where actions disappear. It is a place where actions accumulate. Every choice adds a new thread to the tapestry of reality, and that tapestry is constantly evolving. Yet this brings us to an even deeper question. If every action produces an echo, and every echo returns eventually, then how does the cycle ever stop? Is there a way to release the echoes we have already created? A way to step beyond the endless chain of cause and effect? To answer that question, we must explore the most powerful force in human consciousness. A force that can dissolve old ripples instead of reflecting them. A force that changes the entire architecture of karma itself. And that force is something surprisingly simple. Part 3. The breaking of the cycle. If every action creates a ripple, and every ripple eventually returns, then a difficult question naturally appears. Are we trapped forever? Is human life simply an endless chain of reactions, where every mistake creates another consequence, and every consequence creates another reaction? At first glance, karma can feel like a prison, an invisible system where the past constantly chases the future. But human consciousness has something extraordinary, something that most physical systems in the universe do not possess: awareness. A rock cannot observe its own motion. A star cannot question its own gravity. But a human being can observe their own thoughts. You can watch anger rising inside your mind. You can notice fear appearing in your body. You can even recognize when you are repeating the same mistakes again and again. This simple ability to observe yourself is one of the most powerful forces in existence. Because the moment awareness appears, automatic reactions begin to lose their control. Modern neuroscience calls this ability metacognition. It means thinking about your own thinking. Studies show that when people become aware of their emotional patterns, the brain begins to reorganize itself. Neural pathways slowly change. Habits weaken. New behaviors become possible. Scientists call this process neuroplasticity. The brain is not fixed. It can rewire itself, and when the brain rewires itself, the future also begins to change. Ancient wisdom traditions described the same transformation in a different language. They said that awareness burns karma, not by erasing the past, but by breaking the unconscious cycle of reaction. Imagine someone insults you. The immediate reaction is anger. Anger leads to another harsh response. That response creates conflict. The conflict creates resentment, and the ripple continues growing. But if awareness appears in that moment, something unusual happens. You see the reaction forming inside you. You feel the heat of anger rising, and suddenly you have a choice. You can continue the chain, or you can stop it. This pause, this small moment of awareness changes everything. Because karma depends on unconscious repetition. When reactions become automatic, the ripple grows stronger. But when awareness interrupts the pattern, the ripple begins to lose its energy. There is another powerful force that works in the same way. A force that many people misunderstand. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is often seen as weakness, as if letting go means accepting injustice. But from a deeper perspective, forgiveness is something entirely different. It is the decision to stop reflecting the echo. Imagine two people standing inside a canyon. One person shouts an insult. The other shouts back. The echo continues bouncing between the walls again and again. But if one person becomes silent, the echo slowly fades away. Forgiveness is that silence. It does not erase the original sound, but it prevents the echo from continuing forever. From the perspective of energy, forgiveness is the dissipation of emotional force. Instead of returning anger with anger, you allow the energy to dissolve. Instead of continuing the ripple, you let the water become still again. And this is where the deepest emotional dimension of karma appears. Because human beings rarely learn balance alone. We learn it through relationships, through the people who shape our earliest experiences. For most individuals, the first place where unconditional energy appears is within the presence of caregivers and guardians. Across cultures, these nurturing forces represent something fundamental in human life. The presence that protects and supports, and the guiding presence that teaches direction and responsibility. When these forces work together in harmony, they create something powerful, a sense of stability, a place where the chaotic ripples of life temporarily become calm. In philosophical terms, this balance can be understood as a zero point. In physics, the zero point is the state where opposing forces cancel each other and the system becomes stable. In human life, love that is unconditional can act in a similar way. When someone experiences genuine care without conditions, their internal chaos begins to settle. The mind becomes quieter, the emotional storms become weaker, and the individual slowly learns how to create the same balance within themselves. Of course, not every human life begins with perfect harmony. Some people grow up surrounded by conflict. Some grow up without guidance. But even then, the principle remains the same. Balance can still be learned. Because the capacity for awareness exists in every human mind, and awareness gradually transforms the way we interact with the world. Over time, people who cultivate awareness begin to notice something remarkable. The quality of their experiences begins to change. Conflicts decrease, relationships improve, opportunities appear in unexpected places. This does not happen because the universe suddenly starts rewarding them. It happens because their actions, emotions, and decisions begin to produce different ripples. The frequency they broadcast into the world changes, and the mirror of reality reflects that change. The ancient mystery of karma, then, is not a story of bondage. It is a story of liberation. It is the realization that while we cannot change the ripples of the past, we hold the power to choose the signature we leave on the future. Thanks for watching this video.